Okay, so what I want to do today is draw Wolverine. Wolverine obviously is one of the most badass characters that comics has ever seen. He's probably like the first anti-hero. As a kid I really had like three favorite characters. The first one was Wolverine. I was a big fan of the Punisher, and that he was similar to Wolverine in the fact that he wasn't this idealistic hero. He was more of a, I want to kill people when they piss me off kind of guy. And my third one was Gambit, who again was somewhat of a anti-hero because he was a little bit slick and a little sneakier than other people. But so the thing about Wolverine, he's got a very unique costume, right? It kind of sets him apart. He's instantly recognizable from a distance because of the outline of his, I guess you'd call it his cowl or whatever it is. But there's a few things about him. When you actually draw Wolverine, you've got to remember he's very expressive in the sense that he was always kind of yelling, screaming. He's got this feral nature about him, and that he is going to have these emotions of rage, really. One of my favorite runs of Wolverine was when Larry Hama and Adam Kubert were working on him, and I guess what happened in the story, this was from I think it was the second series of him. It was like Wolverine 75 to, I don't know, like 105 when those guys were working on it. In any case, what happened is he actually had his adamantium pulled from him, ripped out of his skin by Magneto back in the day. And so what eventually it caused him to do is they said there was actually, they call it turning him feral, which just meant like he was like reverting to a lower type of like a more basic primal creature. I don't know, it didn't really make too much sense at the time, but as a kid I thought it was pretty cool. Anyhow, they would draw him, and he would have these, just expressions, and he had these awesome bone claws, actually. It was like, what had happened is they found out that the claws were his. So if you know the history of Wolverine, he was taken into a Weapon X program, and for many years, I guess, the story goes like they created these claws and put him inside of his wrist so he could pull them out and start slicing people up. But what it turned out to be is once they ripped the adamantium out, is they were actually his claws. They were part of his mutation, and so it was a little different because they actually looked really badass. When his claws were bone, they had a texture to them that was pretty cool. So anyhow, what I've done here is I've just kind of laid out the basic head of Wolverine, and I'm going to make some expressions which I think, again, you want him to be a little bit more angry, a little bit more full of rage than the average character. So one thing that you can do, and it's up to you guys as you draw this, is you can use asymmetry. So asymmetry means instead of having like one eye look exactly like the other, you make one almost like popping out. Like this is almost going to be like a perfect circle on this side, and the other one's going to be pretty narrow because they're actually, what you might want to do is make him look almost like he's a crazy person, right? Because at its core, rage and anger is an emotion of instability. It's an emotion of rage. So we'll do this, and we'll give some shadows here. You guys can do a little bit of a shadow as well. A bit of an outline. So the thing about Wolverine is, I found when he's done well, he's not necessarily proportioned properly. So like, he's got this big noggin, this big head, and then he's got this sort of Aryan top, which probably is a little bit out of proportion. So I'm just going to bring this up, and I'm gonna give him lines to kind of come down here and direct him, or direct his the lines will sort of point down to his face. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen that in a lot of different characters other than Wolverine, but I noticed that I think it was Adam Kubert when he used to draw him. He'd always have these sort of lines that pointed him in the right direction. And then in the background, or in a, I guess I'm gonna call this a fin. I'm just gonna make this, kind of shadow this in. Maybe give a little bit of light right there. So you can do that. You can do whatever you want. I mean, if you're drawing this, do what you want to, because it's essentially, depending on which costume you're talking about, the area I'm filling in now will be like a blue, and then you'll have these sections of yellow, which is what I'm going to draw right now. This will be like the yellow section, so there's a line that kind of distinguishes where the blue meets the yellow. And again, you can kind of do the same thing on this side, maybe change it up a little bit. Do whatever you guys want to do. Fill this in. And I like to make a distinction between where this fin's actually popping out and the rest of his costume is. So from there, move this up, bring this down, and oh, it's decent. It's not the greatest, but it's a decent Wolverine. It's a quick sketch. Okay. So Wolverine's got what I call like a very unique type of facial hair. They also had this like I don't know, 3-day stubble. Somehow, it was like he either never shaved and it just grew out that much, or he would just shave out a little bit. I remember he would always have like a 3-day stubble. So I'll get to that in a second. When it comes to his teeth, one of the things you can do is give him, because he's always got like his mouth open because he's always screaming, going, "Ah!" yelling, probably threatening to kill somebody. There's a lot more prominence with his teeth. So with most comic book characters, I would kind of just leave the teeth completely as a whole, and then you just see almost like a white line across. But with Wolverine, I want to have an actual distinction and actually individually bring out most of his teeth. Okay, just like that. So you guys can do that if you want to. Gonna bring the back end in. I guess you could put a tongue and just fill that in right there. Okay. Anyhow, back to what I call a stubble. I like to make lines of stubble when it comes on, because I don't know where I picked this up from, but I've seen it done several places. Just when it comes to making Wolverine's facial hair. So you can do that. So it's line after line, just like that. And, why don't we put a little line right up the side. And a little hint of stubble in the chin. You guys can do whatever you want. But I think that looks decent. I'm just gonna give him a frame. So Wolverine's got 2 different types of shoulder pads. He's got the so like in the, I think it's probably, yeah, you said this brown costume where his shoulder pads were just sort of an extension of his his arm like this. So this would be the actual shoulder pad. But probably the more common one is when he was in that blue and yellow costume. He had these like triangular shoulder pads, if you will. So let's create those, put those in there, and give it a little bit of a. This will be where like the light's hitting it from this angle, I guess. And we'll fill this in. We'll make this dark. It gives them a little bit of a texture. Do the same thing on this side. Okay. And then he's got these big fins. Cast a pretty big shadow. Just kind of switch things up. I will, instead of filling it in, I guess what I could do is just do like a hatched shadow instead. Just like that. Okay. And there you go. Quick sketch of Wolverine.